Alright, it's 1 o'clock. We're on the road to LGT. For anyone who isn't aware, the LGT is one of the largest Warhammer events annually. It's held in the Lee Valley Athletic Centre down in London, and it's usually around 1,000 people, mostly there for 40k, which is what I've been doing for the last few years. But this year I was there for something a little bit different. If you've followed this channel at all, you'll know that I've fully committed over to the Old World, and while I'd be seeing plenty of my 40k friends there, I was going to be playing the first of the UKTC's Old World events. The drive is the better part of 3 hours, so after a quick stop at the busiest service station I've ever seen, we arrived at about 4 o'clock on the Friday evening. Look, there you are. Hello. We've arrived. Look how busy it is already. The car park's half full. I don't know if people just park here and then... No, probably not. But this is the car park of LGT. In the background you can see a big nondescript building. Isn't that exciting? Are you excited? As my chauffeur, Craig is contractually not allowed to show excitement, but rest assured, no 40k players were harmed in the making of this video. One of the first things I noticed in the venue, or rather outside, was they'd pretty much doubled the number of food trucks. This means no more 45-minute queues of yesteryear when you're trying to get food at lunchtime. Big improvement here. After that, it was time to catch up with friends and teammates and completely forget that the audio inside a very loud venue was going to be pretty terrible. Like this. The narrative. John's running the narrative event.
Am I?
Oh, you've been lying to me. What did we do?
I'm sorry, I'm busy. I'm washing my hair.
Alright, well, bye. Before I left the day, I stopped off at the Duncan Road stall, testing out the new paints. Not a sponsor of the video, but I was surprisingly impressed by the silver that they sold, the Surcoat Silver, so bought one of those on the way out the door. With some Friday night socialising done, it was time to head to the venue, grab some food, and start planning what I was going to do into my round one opponent, which is, as you may have noticed, Richie. It is the morning of. I spent about half an hour last night painting my bases. So now all ready to rock up, and it's breakpoint, so I've got to play Richie on breakpoint. I've done the maths this morning. I've got to get him below 17 models, which feels difficult when all of his units are sort of 19 models. So we'll see how that one goes. At least his characters are only a single wound, whereas mine are all 9 wounds, so that should give me a bit of an edge. Short drive to the venue. Word of advice, if you're going to LGT, always rock up early. You want to get those parking spaces. You definitely don't want to be parking in the overflow behind the cinema. However, that does mean you're stood out in the queue, but plenty of chance to socialise in the queue as well. I thought you said you were going to film me.
Wait a minute, where are we going?
We're having a fucking influencer off, aren't we?
Oh, we're moving.
Bane of my fucking existence, this one.
That's fine.
It's the other way. There's Lewis. The Old World area is positioned up and away from the main horde, which is quite nice. It's nearer to the doors, so you get the fresh air, towards the food, the drink, the bathrooms. Great spot to be. This is the first time I get to see the terrain we're going to be playing on, and I will say I was a little bit disappointed. UKTC is traditionally function over form, I would say, especially coming from 40k. It does the job, but it's not the prettiest I've ever seen. Despite looking great, the buildings were also quite small, so gave a lot less protection than I was hoping for when I was planning the list. I've talked about it multiple times, but just to give a quick summary of the list, it's 2 dragons. I'm taking 2 very tanky units, using them as points denial, and then leveraging their output being very efficient. The Supreme Sorceress looking to throw some Pillars of Fire 24 inches with that Focus Familiar combo with Battle Magic, and then just use the rest of the list as sort of chaff to distract the opponent, pick up some small units, and finally the Piece de Resistance, the Cold One Knights, who are there to be a very tanky shooting unit that makes my opponent not want to get too close in case they get charged. Little peek behind the camera while I'm editing. Something that's important to note is that I've played Richie at every event I've been at so far. The first event, I'd played probably about 7 games and he'd played something like 70, so that was pretty okay. The second time, I was playing a full send list and he was playing a full defense list. I bounced off him. I probably made mistakes that I wasn't good enough to catch at the time, but again, I didn't feel too hard about that one. The third game was doubles, and it was basically just 4 friends messing around. They did something stupid turn 1, we did something stupid on our turn 1, it lost us the game. That's fine. That didn't hurt at all. But game 4, he wrecked me, and I needed revenge. Richie is doing something here that we both like to do, which is testing something new. And in this case, he's written a list where every model has some sort of ranged attack. He's got the trademark BSB Thane, who's really hard to kill, but given him a pistol. The Thane of bursting flame, rapid fire, and accuracy to gun down the foes. Anvil of Doom, Burlock Daminson, and then in the core, 19 Rangers, 16 Thunderers, and a couple of War Machines. Cannons in special, 19 Iron Drakes in rare. This is a fairly honest army, and by that I mean he's brought guns, and those guns really want to shoot me. The mission is breakpoint, so I have to reduce Richie down to below 25% of his starting unit strength. The deployment zone is also a little more squashed than normal, so in this case there isn't really a hill that Richie can put his artillery on. Because of this, he turtles up to the top right, making good use of the woods, but also hiding the rest of his units from my charges as best he can. I deploy everything I can out of line of sight. I've got some Dark Riders on the bottom left behind the woods, some Cold One Riders behind the hill on the bottom right, I've got the Dragons behind the building, and then I scout everyone else into as much cover as possible. Dark Riders and Shades up to the top left to try and get some early shots into the Rangers, and then some more models in the bottom right just because that's where I had space. The game went pretty well. Dragons did dragon things. Turn 1, I positioned my Dreadlord in front of his entire army, threatening to charge the Anvil of Doom. Richie buffed the Anvil of Doom, giving it reroll and +1 to its armor saves. I then decided, actually, I'll just charge the Rangers instead. Got into the Rangers, that went well for me, and after that it was a lot of mop-up. Dragons running through lines, everything dying, everything with the exception of the Iron Drakes, which were quite points dense because they had all of the important characters in there. So by the time the break happened, after I killed the last unit of Thunderers, well, it was only a 14-6 victory. Here's Richie to talk about it.
All right, I am joined by Richie, Dowie After Dark. You know him, you love him. He's always on the channel, as much as I can get him.
Yeah, guys.
We had a round 1 grudge match, and it was breakpoint. And how did that go for you?
Well, unfortunately, I got broken. Goddamn dragons!
Goddamn dragons. Yeah, it's the first time that I've brought dragons, and they're pretty okay.
They did dragon stuff.
They did, yeah. Not really a fair matchup. You only brought infantry, so we can't take anything.
I know. And dwarves are the 3rd worst army, so what can you do?
Absolutely. Right. I'm pulling my win rate back up. I'm now like a 25% win rate. No, 20% win rate into it. So,
yeah.
Give it 5 more events, and I might have an okay win rate.
Not against me though.
No.
After that, it was time to catch up with my team before we went straight into round 2 where I was playing against James Ramsey's Bretonnians. I knew Ramsey's list pretty well because I was in the group chat with him and Andy who were writing the same list together, so I had a good idea of what I was getting into. It's a finely tuned Exiles list with all of the things you might expect to see. The Falcon Horn, a Baron with the Frontier Axe and the Virtue of Knightly Temper, the Green Knight, a unit of 5 Pegasus Knights with the Vanguard banner, a second unit of Pegasus Knights, 4 in this unit, but then there are some slightly spicier choices, in this case a Paladin BSB with the banner of the Lady's Grace. I know Ramsey was very scared about having to face off into Screams, but also a couple of Bombards. Now, Bombards are very good, and I think a lot of people are taking them, but it's not something that you see necessarily in every list, and I really like them. It allows the list to play a little more cagily. Coming into this game, I knew it was going to be difficult. Ramsey's a very good player, and he's playing one of the best armies in the game, possibly the best if you take into account that the Green Knight can pop out of a couple of different bits of terrain in this event. Going into it, I knew it was going to be difficult, and I set up quite cagily with my dragons. I wanted to try and get the turn 1, and then just Arcane Urgency forwards and get the very aggressive push. Unfortunately, I didn't get Arcane Urgency, but I stuck to the game plan where I wasn't going to be absolutely crippled if I got the second turn. I go first, I make an aggressive push forwards, and after that point, my dragons don't get to fly at all for the rest of the game. It's a very back and forth game. My shooting does very little, but in return, I manage to pass almost all of the ward saves on my Sorceress on Dragon, just a normal 5-up ward, but she survives the Bombards without any real threat. The game goes quite swingy, we go into some really fun combats, and it ends in a very close draw. But here to talk about it more, is Ramsey himself.
Yeah.
I'm joined by James Ramsey, my round 2 opponent. We've just had a very close game.
Yes.
James is playing Bretonnians with the dreaded Green Knight. How did that go?
It was a very good game. Very enjoyable. We were playing the meaty engagement, which is the one where you roll a dice for every model in your unit in your army.
Yes.
And on a 1 they go in reserve, which is obviously a bit worrying when you're playing against two dragons and you're playing against Pegasus Knights, which are very aggressive. So luckily for us, it actually meant we had a good game because nobody rolled a 1 anything important.
Yeah, 2 units of Shades for me.
And 1 unit of Knights for me, I think it was, so it was fine. So that meant we could actually have a proper game, which is nice, because this mission I think is one of those ones which maybe probably don't put in a pack if you can help it, I think.
I think that's a fair comment to make.
Because there's 6 missions, I think, and you just don't know what I think.
Yeah.
But it was fine.
I just played the regular...
Open battle,
Yeah, 3 times.
Yeah. But anyway, so we had that game, and it was a really close game, kind of a bit back and forth. Obviously, you were setting up with your shooting, because you've got a lot more shooting than I do. I've got the cannons, though, so your dragon's a bit worried about that.
Yeah.
And it came down to like some knife-edge combats, didn't it?
It
Where
really
really, the Green Knight kind of bailed me out by tying your big dragon up. But I couldn't get the wounds through with them, and the cannonballs, you made the damn 5-ups.
I made 3 of the 4 5-up saves against cannonballs, and these are D3+1 cannonballs, so they're the good ones.
Luckily for me, I rolled really well on the saves for your shooting, so you didn't do a lot of damage, which you probably could have done a bit more damage.
To be entirely fair, my dragons bailed me out as well. They rolled incredibly well. The sorceress on dragon killed the general, which was...
Oh, that was sad. Although, I think it probably was in your favour, that combat. Once the cannon hasn't gone through and you're on like 5 wounds, I'm probably not going to kill you at that point.
I think that's safe. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Good game.
Really enjoyed the game.
Yes, excellent.
My 3rd round opponent was Chris, who'd gone for some fairly spicy choices. He had a Glade Lord on a stag, not a dragon, a lot cheaper, but also harder to use, a Shadow Dancer, level 1 Spear of Leok, Lore Familiar, Power Scroll and Illusion to really try and get that spectral doppelganger shenanigans off. No Sisters of the Thorn as well. There were some War Dancers, some Wild Riders, and a couple of units of Treemen. And it's more what I think of when I think of a traditional elf army. Don't be deceived, however, there's still plenty of power in this list. There's the Spellweaver with the Oaken Stave, or Broken Stave, as you might have heard it referred to. Elementalism, which doesn't have Pillar of Flame, but does have Plague of Rust, which combos very nicely with all of the Hagbane tip shooting. My game plan was to focus fire down the couple of squads of scouts that Chris had over on the right-hand side from my perspective, and for the dragons to charge the 2 tree men that were over on the left-hand side of the board. This went pretty well for me. The tree men did die over the course of a couple of turns. They're surprisingly tanky, but they do still die to dragons. And on the right-hand side, it went okay. I did manage to kill the scouts, but most of the stuff on the right-hand side did end up dying. However, bought me time, bought me space, let me push quite aggressively. And in the end, I won quite convincingly in what was a 17-3 victory.
I'm joined by Chris. We've just finished our 3rd game. I will say, now that we're finished, you're probably my favourite opponent so far. You were so lovely to play against.
Thank you very much.
How did the game go?
He has to say that because he just kicked my teeth in. The game went really well.
Yeah.
It was really close right up until probably end of turn 5, beginning of turn 6. I just couldn't kill the dragons. They're so strong. They're so strong. We did a death or glory charge with the general at the end. It didn't work.
To give you your due, it was close until the end of turn 6 because you could have killed the dragons in the shooting phase, and that made me very sad.
And it's better to die charging than to live running away.
Absolutely. I lived running away.
Pointedly about a dreadlord on a dragon. But no, it was very good.
Fantastic.
Ed was a very good opponent. We had a lot of good chat about rules and stuff. There was a good reciprocal approach of, don't worry if you get something slightly wrong. We were all talking about intentions, always good. It's a big thing that people always talk about when they talk about coming to a tournament. Really concerned that the guy you're going to be playing is millimetre hammering and he's going to be that guy. I've actually not played anyone today who's been like that. Everyone's been really chill. And I think, everyone's just here to have fun, roll dice.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for the interview. The money will be in your PayPal.
With day 1 done, we went to get some food, of which I completely forgot to film because I am a baby YouTuber and this is the first time I've ever had to carry a camera in public. The food was adequate, the music was far too loud and the conversation was great. And after that we went back to the Airbnb, got a few hours of rest and then rolled back into day 2.
Right, so we're here in the morning of day 2. We've just had the pairings go up. Yesterday was a good start, got a win into got a win into Dwarves, draw into Bretonnians, and a win into Wood Elves, and I've got Wood Elves again this morning, but this time it is significantly harder. They've got multiple Sisters of the Thorn, so this is going to be an interesting one. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, this is the third opponent that I've played already. So I'm going to be playing into Nicholas, who I played at the last event we were both at. Lovely chap, looking forward to the game, but his list this time is a lot scarier. He's got Wood Elves with multiple Sisters of the Thorn, so it's going to be well, we'll see.
Nicholas was running probably the most optimal version of the Wood Elf list I've seen. He also had a very fun wood, which was an L shape and less than an inch thick, so the Green Knight wasn't able to pop out of it and cause him problems on his own terrain. The Dragon Lord has a 5-up save that can't be reduced and a 5-up ward, and if it gets into a challenge, is -1 to be hit while also debuffing its enemy with -1 weapon skill. Lots of things in the game are going to really struggle to hit that, and if you've got weapon skill 4 or worse, you're going to be hitting on 6s. Other than that, the army is a pair of spellcasters, a unit of Glade Riders for them to sit in, cast their spells, and then reserve move back behind cover, 3 units of Sisters of the Thorn, and pure MSU Deepwood Scouts and Glade Guard. The mission was flank attack, which means I didn't get the normal +1 to the roll-off to go first, but I felt like if I didn't go for a really strong alpha strike, I was going to get whittled down by multiple Pillars of Flame very quickly. So I gambled, and I put 1 unit of Dark Riders and 2 units of Shades on the hard left flank with the aim to hopefully go first, kill a unit of Sisters of the Thorn, and disrupt the big spell casting brick. Unfortunately, I lost the first turn roll-off, and, well, Nicholas's opening salvo, the Ruby Ring, killed the 5 Shades that were screening his drops when we had our initial scout off trying to win some space from each other, and the Dark Riders that were just within 6 of them and right next to the board edge failed their panic check. They ran off the board. Sister of the Thorn threw a few javelins, killed 2 of the Shades remaining in the bottom left-hand corner. Another one died to some incidental fire, and I was left with really pretty much nothing on the left-hand flank, so I knew this was going to be a really rough game. On the right-hand flank, I then spent my next couple of turns pushing, killing all of his MSU, trying to take back as many points as possible, while Nicholas really consolidated the left-hand side, killing another unit of Dark Riders, picking up the Cold One Knights. It did take him a few turns, but between the Pearls of Fire and a Dragon, did manage to get there. At the bottom end of 3, we added up the points, and we realised that it was going to be an 11-9 victory to Nicholas if all he had to do was, maybe feed me some MSU, pick up a little bit of my MSU, not lose too many points, but stop me from getting into anything major, like the Dragon or the double caster in the Glade Riders brick. I realised Nicholas was going to run away, because he is a smart and savvy player, and thus wasn't going to give me an easy game. So I faced the choice. Do I take the 9-11 loss, and maybe rank slightly better at the end of the tournament? Or do I push, try and catch one of the units, make Nicholas make a mistake, hope that he gets a miscast somewhere important down the line, and go for, potentially a win. And that's the decision I went for. And in singles, it's the decision I'd go for every time. In teams, it's a little bit different when playing for every point matters, but here I was here for wins, and wins alone. I was undefeated at this point, so I wanted to try and continue that streak. I did push aggressively. Nicholas did end up getting a fairly key miscast, which stopped him from putting down some forests, but he fled from the charge. I wasn't able to catch him. We had some really good positioning in there, and it meant that I ended up losing a dragon to some poison shooting. Got very low to some poison shooting, and then the Sorceress and Dragon charged into the Glade Lord on Dragon, just in an attempt to tie him up on my turn 5, hoping against hope that somehow I could tie it up for 2 turns, catch it with my other Dragon, and at that point, have something to go on. This didn't go well. The Sorceress died immediately. She failed all 5 of her ward saves and went kaput. She had 5 wins remaining. So,
all right, I'm joined by Nicholas after our round 4 game, playing Wood Elves, very fittingly here in the woods. How was the game for you?
It was really good. I mean, obviously, it's the second time I play you, so first of all, I'm going to talk about the opponent. And it's always a pleasure. I think
thank you.
Yeah, I think the best opponents that I've faced in previous at each event. It's always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You're like very, very relaxed with everything, and like very communicative. In terms of the matchup, first time I played against Double Dragon Dark Elves, so a bit scared, but I think I won the roll-off, and I think the way you deployed, that's kind of was it.
Yeah, I was gambling for the turn 1 because I knew that if I didn't go first, I was going to get Pillar of Flamed, because you've got you've got the good list. And I'm saying that with no shade. I want to play against the good list, but it's the triple pillar of fire potential. So I knew that I had to sort of go first and try and gun you down, but didn't manage. It's the only map without the +1 for getting the deployment done first. So it was definitely a gamble.
Exactly.
But yeah, just to mirror you, I always enjoy playing it. It's a fantastic game. Thank you so much, and I'll see you at the next one.
Cool.
With that loss, I was 2 wins, a draw, and a loss, and I really didn't want to go home with anything less than a 3-2, so the pressure was on to win my last game. I sat down, had lunch, and looked at the list that I might be playing against, and it was a pretty scary field. I had potentially more Bretonnians, there were some Tomb Kings, there was also Lewis, obviously. I could end up being paired up or paired down. There was a lot in there, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to get. And then I paired into Dwarves, which filled me with, to be honest, quite a lot of confidence because I played Dwarves at the start of the event. I kind of had a game plan. Obviously, I know playing against Richie exactly how Dwarves work and exactly what I want to do against them. Looking at the list over lunch, I spotted a couple of things I wanted to attack. The battle standard pairer didn't have the Master Runic Grungi. Normally, that 5-up ward causes me real problems when I'm playing against Dwarves. You can really just chuck that Thane with his 2-up save and 5-up ward into combat with the dragon and expect to survive and then probably win on static combat rates. But in this case, it wasn't going to happen. I was probably going to be able to chew through him, which was nice given that I had 2 dragons. As I expected, Jack bunkered up on the right-hand flank. This is fairly standard for Dwarves. All of the artillery went on the hill, the rangers went to the woods, everything else filled the gaps inside. This is really nice for me. I was able to put my sorceress just over 24 inches away from where he had to end up putting his Anvil of Doom, so out of range of the Dispel, and it meant that I was going to be able to throw Pillars of Flame through multiple units, and spoiler, I did. My first turn when I cast it, I managed to get it through 8 units. That's a lot of damage. Coming into Jack's first round, he managed to Fated Dispel the Pillar of Fire. In retrospect, I think I'm pretty happy about this. I don't think Jack had really experienced the full horror of a Pillar of Fire going through your gun line, but it would have really sucked to have just won the game by Pillar of Fire kills all your artillery after it bounces through 6 times on turns 1, 2, and 3. Never mind. He then manages to shoot some chaff, nothing too much happens, and coming into my second turn, I get some very effective charges with my Dreadlord. Dreadlord goes into the Rangers, makes them run away, overruns into the Dwarf Warriors, who have also been charged by some Dark Riders, meaning I get a second round of combat. Very tasty, very good. I also managed to cast Pillar of Fire with the second Focus Familiar from the Sorceress. This time, I'm pretty okay with it going through. It's only going to get 5 units, but, you know, this is going to be very effective. Hopefully I'm going to pick up those War Machines over the next turn or so. Jack's second turn comes around and incredibly manages to Fated Dispel the Pillar of Fire a second time. Fair enough, can't argue with it. Pretty much everything I have is out of the woods though, so it's all screened. I think he manages to kill some chaff, shoots the 2 organ guns into... I want to say it was some shades, picks up some shades, something along those lines. But the meat of my list is still fairly protected. My turn number 3, I decide I'm going to just have to bring the Sorceress out, so I do. Bring her out and forwards, try and cast some spells, and then just continue to mop up with the Dreadlord as well. The rest of the game kind of just bounces around. It's a lot of me charging dragons into multiple units, picking up or, you know, making that unit shield, wall, stubborn, fall back. I overrun into it, goes into Jack's turn. Jack is unable to shoot me. I kill the unit, chase it down, or just completely wipe it in his turn. Then I get to position to charge something else on my turn. It's about the perfect game in terms of having dragons. Something I will say is Jack got my favourite opponent vote for this event. Everyone I played was great, don't get me wrong, but Jack was great in the face of being absolutely destroyed by a pair of dragons, which, having been on the receiving end of, I can say is not necessarily the most fun experience in the old world. So, huge props to Jack. It was an incredible game, and I really enjoyed it.
All right, I'm joined by Jack after the game 5 we've just played. How was that for you?
It was interesting. It was certainly interesting. Yeah, for, second round against Dark Elves. So yeah, it was interesting seeing how it worked.
Yeah, it was a good game. Unfortunately, I did Pillar of Fire shenanigans. Although you were really good at dispelling them.
One. I think one.
You got both of them.
Both of them. Yeah. After first, they are devastating. We're artilleried up.
Yeah, it was good. Well, it was a great game. Really enjoyed it. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks.
So that was the end of 5 great games of Warhammer. I did pretty much as I'd hoped coming in. I was looking for either a 3-1-1 or a 4-1. Either would have been fine. given the caliber of opponents I faced. I was really happy with the games that I got. We got a clear winner at the end of the event, which is always nice. Doesn't always happen at the smaller events, obviously 48 players. It's nice to have an undefeated player. Congratulations again to Dr. Luke Blacksill, who got a great 5-0 run. And I thought, fantastic, time to, you know, pack up, head home. Didn't bother filming the award ceremony because I wasn't really expecting to win anything. So imagine my surprise when I did. I got the best overall player. As you can see, I've got my snazzy trophy here. I've got my nice big medal there, as designed by John Scrivens at Scriverwart, check him out. But yeah, no, I was absolutely blown away. It was a real pleasure to have played those games, but also have people who enjoyed playing against me. I think I probably won more sportsmanship votes than I did win the painting scores, if we're being honest and realistic about my army. But yeah, it was incredible. It was a real privilege to have so many people think that playing against me was enjoyable. So, with the event done, some closing thoughts. I had a great time. I played 5 great opponents. Unfortunately, I knew through them ahead of time, but that was just poor luck on my behalf. 48 players there. Chances are I should have played the 40 or so I didn't know, but I got paired into 3 that I did. Not the fault of the event. Had a great time anyway. The terrain, it worked. I wasn't in love with it, but if you're doing mass-produced terrain, I guess it's hard to get some really beautiful stuff, but I would like to see improvements in that aspect. And in terms of the rules pack, I think it could do with some tightening up, but as I have alluded to in the podcast I did on Tuesday, did talk to Zach. He did allay some of my fears. Interested to see what direction they go with the pack, taking the old world in the future, but we'll see. I'm definitely going to give the UKTC another couple of run-outs before I make a firm decision on it either way. I hope you enjoyed this video. I definitely enjoyed making it, and I'd like to make more stuff like that. So huge thanks to my supporters. First of all, Ginger Steve, who provided me with these fantastic cameras, but also the rest of the Grail Knight tier supporters. That is Old World Arena, Mechanite, and Krieg Hammer. Big thanks to them for the support they've given me. Thanks as well to the rest of my supporters. That is Escape Velocity, Voltan Ignato, Squig Herder Sean, The Grumpy Wargamer, Aupt T, Gard Anderson, Matthew Sinclair, more Robot Wars content, The Winslow, Ed M, Dowie After Dark, Existence UK, Jam Gran, H, Matthew Howarth, Orc Boss, and most recently Ed's drum covers. I really appreciate the support you give me. I'd love to do this more. I'd love to turn this into a full-time thing, and the support that people like you give me is the thing that helps get that closer to reality.